Create a handful of short musical ideas, write them down any way you want, then put them in an order that creates a musical narrative. Then invite a group of players to play them from start to finish, allowing them the freedom to play each idea any way they want, for as long as they want, until starting the next idea in the series. Weaving in and out of these ideas as a guide to a half-written composition and half-group improvisation. Sound like fun? Well, let's learn how to play a famous song that does just that. Terry Riley's In C. Inhale its influence, then write our own music game. Coming up next. First, if you don't know what In C is, then I would recommend watching my favorite performance of the piece, In C Malley. Then, maybe try and listen to various versions in order to understand how differently they can be played. A fun sunny morning activity might be to put on the original version and follow along with the score. In C was written by American composer Terry Riley. He was born in California in 1935. By the early 60s, he became heavily associated with minimalist music. Well, what is minimalist music? You know, it's probably best for you to think about it and figure it out on your own, right? Well, to help you get started, here's a story told through a minimal approach of a ship arriving too late to save a drowning witch. Though Riley has stated how he disapproves of the dry and boring term minimalism. He says,
"My goals in music is to take something ordinary, transform it into something exceptional."
He took Indian classical music, American avant-garde, and jazz, liquefied them, poured this liquid into a large crack in the land, creating a beautiful flowing river, and he pointed at it and said,
"This is my music."
The main idea here, and what I want to focus on, are the 53 short melodic patterns that make up the score, or directions on how to play the piece. Now, this is where I would personally fit In C into the music game category. With a list of all the melodic patterns in front of them, musicians have complete control with what they want to do with these melodic patterns. Now, Riley was inspired by tape loops in the studio while editing a film score. He wanted to take the idea of the loops he was working with in the editing room and apply it to live music.
To take something ordinary, transform it into something exceptional.
Let's take a look at the directions. All performers play from the same page of 53 melodic patterns played in sequence. Any number of any kind of instruments can play. A group of about 35 is desired if possible, but smaller or larger groups will work. If a vocalist or vocalists join in, they can use any vowel or consonant sound they like. Patterns are to be played consecutively, with each performer having the freedom to determine how many times he or she will repeat each pattern before moving on to the next. There is no fixed rule as to the number of repetitions a pattern may have. However, since performances normally average between 45 minutes and an hour and a half, it can be assumed that one would repeat each pattern from somewhere between 45 seconds and a minute and a half or longer. It is very important that performers listen very carefully to one another, and this means occasionally to drop out and listen. As an ensemble, it is very desirable to play very softly as well as very loudly, and try to diminuendo and crescendo together. Each pattern can be played in unison or canonically in any alignment with itself or with its neighboring patterns. One of the joys of In C is the interaction of the players or polyrhythmic combinations that spontaneously arise between patterns. Some quite fantastic shapes will arise and disintegrate as the group moves through the piece when it is properly played. It is very important not to hurry from pattern to pattern, but to stay on a pattern long enough to interlock with other patterns being played. As the performance progresses, performers should stay within 2 or 3 patterns of each other. It is important not to race too far ahead or to lag too far behind. The ensemble can be aided by the means of an eighth note pulse, played on high Cs of the piano or on a mallet instrument. Now, wait a minute. Just to make it clear, this eighth note pattern is an option. You don't need to do it. I've heard many people say that they don't like this part of the composition and they wish they could admit it. Well, the truth is, Terry Riley himself has said that it's an option. So, if you want some kind of consistent beat, you can include it. But don't forget, you have the option to take it out if you want to. You can get a beat going any way you want by using patterns on percussion or anything like that, as the composer states himself here. It is also possible to use improvised percussion in strict rhythm, drum set, cymbals, bells, etc., if it is carefully done and doesn't overpower the ensemble. All performers must play strictly in rhythm, and it is essential that everyone play each pattern carefully. It is advised to rehearse patterns in unison before attempting to play the piece to determine that everyone is playing correctly. There are additional notes that would be worth reading, but finally, how do we end in C? In C is ended in this way. When each performer arrives at figure number 53, he or she stays on it until the entire ensemble has arrived there. The group then makes a large crescendo or diminuendo a few times, and each player drops out as he or she wishes. This piece brings up an interesting topic: minimal harmonic movement. The song is called in C, but it does modulate. At the 18th pattern, an F sharp is introduced. Commonly, that would be about 15 minutes into the song. Near the end, we get a few B flats flying around, but even with these changes, they occur slowly enough that the harmonic movement seems to stand still for a long period of time. So, how does one keep a piece of music in one key interesting? Well, that's a fun question to get your creative problem-solving juices boiling. There are a few solutions to consider: harmonic rhythm, contrasting timbre, melodic invention. In C can and usually does use all of these. Remember that harmonic motion is a Western invention. There is a lot that can be done with only one chord or no harmony whatsoever. Well, what can you do with the idea of patterns or fragments in music? Now, if you watched any of my other videos, you might know that I call these events, right? And in C is proof of how creative one can get when working with events. So don't forget to subscribe right here, because we're going to go over a lot more of how to use events in composition, improvisation, and music games. So I'll see you next time right here at Not Right Music.